Yo, so over the holidays, one of you guys hit me up and was like, hey, I know you're still watching this show of ours. And I was like,
yeah.
And he was like,
don't you love me?
Only instead of me, he said us. And again, I was like,
yeah.
And he was like, if you can't go full-blown Vik on these eps right now, why not get cute and drop some quick hits? And I was like,
yeah.
And then about a week later, I was like,
Sure. Why not?
So same Poda Bing Redux, but only a
couple of 3 things.
Instead of a couple or 3,000. If you know me, you know me. So I'll skip the preambles. Time is money, so... Come on, let's go! First piece I'm gonna call, what's the tone? Tone.
What's with the tone?
In Boca, it was cemetery scenes as effective tone setters, especially when they're put right up front like this. We're instantly confronted with and reminded of the reality of death. There's an emotional grounding of sorts, like in House Party 2. Seriously, though. Eastwood in Unforgiven, and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Denzel in He Got Game. Leota in Goodfellas. The tone here, to wit, is darkly comedic, almost satirical. Livia paying respects to her late husband while informally plotting the murder of her son, perhaps even right next to his eventual plot. Another thing cemetery scenes are great for, from a world-building perspective, is symbolizing the past, giving timeline texture, if you will, to these characters, who they are, who they've lost, and who they have left. And from a plot advancement perspective, they're also a great place to slot in crucial information, trigger new conflicts, or cement important decisions. Here, Junior and Livia's plot to clip Tony, while his son plays with stray dogs behind them. Back to Kid and Play, though, for a sec. There's nothing kid or play about them. They made 5 of those House Party movies. Outside Rocky, James Bond, or Fast and Furious, 5+ green lights is rare. A couple of Rocky Balboas of the rap game, you ask me. Next, let's call this Finn's thinking out loud again moment.
I was thinking out loud. Well, not out loud, but in the action of getting out the suitcase, I was thinking.
If Tony knew how much money was circulating in women's sports now, would he push harder for Meadow to lock up an NIL deal? If so, you'd think he'd be cheering like Thanasis does for Giannis, as opposed to Westbrook when he was a Laker. Love Westbrook. First ballot GOAT, let alone Hall of Famer after this.
Beat your ass and hide the Bible with God watching. Sometimes you gotta hop out and certify boogeyman. I'm the one that up to walk you down. Whole time I know he got some pull on him. Extort shit, really just wrong him. Say Drake.
Now, the parents applauding Hauser after the big win got me thinking about how much of victory is coaching versus players. This really became an interest of mine after coaching myself, with mixed results. Some wildly successful teams and some duds.
Don't stammer around like a fucking spastic.
Do coaches matter? LeBron wins with anyone they plug and play. Blatt, Spo, Lou, Vogel, Ham, Reddick. He's never had an iconic coach. You can count those on one hand. Guys like Phil Jackson, Popovich, Pat Riley. And the Warriors, they won all their titles with Kerr, who became great. He wasn't a heralded mastermind until they started winning. Recall they were quite successful with Mark Jackson. Kerr just got him over the hump. But how much of that was actually him? I've always wondered that. MIT Sloan Conference heads ascribe about a 20 to 30% value to a coach's impact on championship success. For what it's worth, there's a concentration of championship victories among only a few head coaches, underscoring, of course, their importance. Over a 40-year period, 4 coaches have secured around 40% of the championships. A couple other Sloan Conference level findings stood out. Baseball managers have a greater impact on runs allowed versus runs scored. So defense benefits from coaching know-how.
How many fucking hours did I spend playing catch with you?
Same thing in the NFL and NHL. Coaches have an outsized impact on points allowed. With respect to the NBA and college basketball, though, coaches were considered to be highly significant on defense and offense. They directly influence points scored, points allowed, point differential, and outcomes. The bottom line? Coaches are not interchangeable. They do actually matter a lot. Hence, Hauser's appeal. Kobe didn't win with Del Harris or Rudy Tomjanovich, but he did with Phil. Jordan didn't win with Doug Collins, but he did with Phil. Jeter didn't win with Buck Showalter, but he did the next year with Joe Torre. D. Wade didn't win with Stan Van Gundy, but he did with Pat Riley, then his handpicked successor, Spo, who, by the way, got the bag in a very Tony Soprano, you're entitled to shit kind of way.
I want what I am entitled to.
You're entitled to shit.
Another sidebar, because like Russell Westbrook once said, why not? Yellow card happy refs in youth soccer. And tacking onto that, the parents that storm the field and confront the refs, like Silvio here. Some parent in Mississippi once ambushed an umpire in the parking lot. One hoops ref in Georgia got 30 stitches after a controversial call. At a Colorado hockey game, a parent sprayed Lysol in a ref's face, and a mother hit another while holding a baby in one arm. All over a call at a kid's basketball game. I read an interesting take on why this might be happening now more than ever. One component of it was an overall erosion of public behavior.
Real lack of standards, your generation.
And on the other hand was the observation that the almost $20 billion per year youth sports industrial complex created a population of new parents who feel entitled via their cash outlays to antagonize refs and coaches, that somehow they've paid for the right to do that. A quote that stood out: parents mistake the amount of money they spend for how good their kid actually is and derive a sense of entitlement from the cost. Next up, my standout line on this watch anyway, or what we'll call the Who Got the Tonys quotation book shoved up their fat fucking ass. This episode.
Why don't you get the fuck out of here before I shove your quotations book up your fat fucking ass?
The inaugural winner, Junior. I have a feeling he's going to win a lot of these.
Where's the key to the partner's crapper?
The notion that using a regular person's crapper, a Gen Pop crapper, as being insufficient for Junior has a certain Jerry Maguire, life is better in first class mystique to it. In addition to being perfectly delivered and hilarious, it does heavy lifting, revealing his character. Does more work in 7 words than the first 10 pages of a lot of scripts. Now, in said crapper, Mikey's all worked up that they're holed up in a lawyer's office while Tony's out and about at large. The contrast of that. He's convinced the sieve in this thing of theirs is coming out of Tony's camp. A simple, calculating way to reestablish a wedge between uncle and nephew, with the end goal of moving himself up, of course. He says he feels it in his gut. As of 2025, what are the stats on going with your gut? Has anybody quantified this long heralded heuristic? Through a little digging, or probably just waking up in the middle of a Huberman lab pod, I learned that there is scientific validation to the mindset of making rapid judgments based on limited information. While they're not always necessarily right, the overall outcomes tend toward being better than the alternative. Kind of like...
More is lost by indecision than by wrong decision. That's all I'm saying.
The more a person can benefit from pattern recognition, or the ability to recognize subtle clues in the environment, the better the gut-level decision-making will be. Without getting too technical, some research suggests there's a physiological explanation for gut feelings. Thinking goes that the gut is connected to the brain via the enteric nervous system.
Who did what?
In what's called the gut-brain axis. So the healthier the gut, the better the intuitive gut feeling judgments, which, based on Tony's diet, would make his gut feeling judgments all-star caliber.
Sausage, cioppino, anything spicy?
Couple more, and we'll call this the song you named Harpo after.
Because that's the song you named Harpo after, right?
Where we'll consider songs that are out there that share the same name as characters. Songs that Tony himself might even sing. In Boca, it's Junior's Roberta. Billy Joel, of course, wrote a song about Roberta, as did Les McCann, The Animals, Lead Belly, and Christopher Cross of sailing fame. But Billy Joel's Roberta is singular. He makes you feel like we all know a Roberta, that we've all got one somewhere.
I was with some girl I don't even remember.
Roberta.
Right, Roberta.
And bringing us home every installment, our weekly salute to Mr. Chase, a segment we'll call Commendatori.
Commendatori. Buongiorno.
I'm looking at scenes or moments where his mastery was on particular display in a given episode. And Boca was the guy with the hat on in the restaurant. Now, let's game theory the options on the table for that guy for a sec. 1, he takes off the hat immediately upon request. No harm, no foul. Maybe Tony even signs it. Local celebrity, all that. But no stakes and nothing cinematic going on, so cross that one out. 2, The guy refuses to take it off, never turns around, and Tony keeps standing there. Now, this could go one of two ways. A, Tony physically removes it himself, leading to a scene and potentially an altercation. B, Tony smashes a bottle of Montepulciano on the guy's head. Don't need to workshop that one. We can cut it right out, since Tony's entire premise is maintaining the sanctity of this fine establishment. 3, Artie goes over and talks to him instead of Tony. Certainly an opportunity for comedy to ensue. So it stays on the whiteboard for now. Or 4, what happened, happened. It's one of the few scenes where all ideas are viable. Perfect canvas for creativity and propelling things along. Also reveals character, gives more dimension to these people we're spending time with. A real two-way player piece of scene work. I personally think it could have been fun to see Artie take a crack at it first, only to have Tony come in and clean up the mess. Now, the thing that gets me the most about this scene, it's a scene of nothing really, right? 2 guys at a table having dinner, catastrophizing what's probably not worth catastrophization, their kids' careers as soccer players. Odds are better that Tony and Artie swap careers. From a writing standpoint, by the way, conversations about one thing that turn into something else. Great mechanism to keep things moving. Travolta and Samuel L. Jackson's scene in the car in Pulp Fiction is a classic example. What starts out about a trip to Europe becomes something philosophical, divine intervention. But quite possibly no films do it better than the Before trilogy. But back to Chase. He transforms a run-of-the-mill dinner chat into something very real, very exacting, very quickly. With just a look, an observation from Tony, and a look back from those 2 guys at the table. Even earlier, when Tony walks over, eyes are on him in a much more than people-watching sort of way. The threat of surveillance at any moment, at any time, is front and center. Maybe they're linked with Harris. Or maybe, just maybe, these are the guys Mikey put in play. Either way, what's interesting about it is, as always, multiple options could be true. Even that it's all a big nothing. Has such a stage play quality to it, and that the audience is captive at all times. It's what's so great about The Sopranos. We get payoffs to things that were set up earlier, but they're often incomplete, open-ended, expansive. It's not so one-to-one, formulaic by numbers. Just 2 guys at another table, coaxing something unforgettable out of this scene, as well as conjuring up a subtle Godfather reference. And, okay, one more because I'm a sucker and I just can't resist. This is the who could have built this moment.
Who could have built this?
That overhead shot of Junior expressing immediate regret after dropping Roberta. I love that shot. We've also seen it in season 4, 7, and The Insider. Okay, that's all I got. Thanks for being here. Hit subscribe, leave a comment, do all the things. See you next time.
We was on the front line listening to Kendrick.